So we're told that God's called us to be kings and priests and teachers, that we're going to be in positions of leadership in God's kingdom. God has promised that we'll have great responsibility in what's probably going to be one of the most significant periods of time that we could certainly imagine. Is that intimidating to you? It is a little bit to me, especially when I think about how we are to be preparing ourselves now for that time. If I'm going to teach others, are they going to listen to me? There's certainly a lot of people that are much better teachers than I feel like I am. People that have greater talents to be able to lead others. What am I really going to be able to do? Today, I want to encourage you by looking at how it really doesn't matter what we have, and that God can accomplish great things through His servants, not because of some amazing talents or abilities that we may have, but because He is great. So I want to do that to start and illustrate this through some examples that we see in Scripture, where God or His servants asked individuals, well, what do you have? Now, see what I mean by that in just a moment. Let's start with Moses. So in the story of Moses, there's a lot about Moses, of course, and I want to look at a very specific part of the story of Moses in Exodus chapter 4. And we know that God called Moses in the wilderness, and in Exodus 4 and verse 1 and 2, Moses answers God in his calling and says, "But suppose they will not believe me or listen to my voice. Suppose they say, 'The Lord has not appeared to you.'" So Moses was kind of intimidated by this. What am I? Who am I? Pharaoh and the Israelites, are they going to listen to me? What's going to make them want to listen to me, Lord? In verse 2, the Lord responds back to him and says, "What's that in your hand? What do you have with you right now?" And he said, "A rod." All Moses had with him was his rod, as from being a shepherd, and his staff. And of course, we know the story around where God performs a miracle and has him throw it on the ground. It turns into a serpent, turns it back into a staff when he goes to pick it up again. God used that as an example and a miracle to help to encourage Moses in what he was calling him to do. He did the same thing at the Red Sea. When Moses and the Israelites were there at the Red Sea and up against Pharaoh's army coming after them, and Moses cries out to him and says, God says, "Why are you calling out to me? Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so the Israelites can go through in the sea on dry ground." So again, he used that staff, he used what Moses had with him to perform yet another miracle. And again, with the water at the rock, where Moses struck the rock and it brought forth clean water. God used a stick that was previously only used to really encourage sheep where they should go to work many miracles with Moses. My second example is in 2 Kings chapter 4. Here we have the story of a widow who thought that she had nothing of value. The creditors were threatening her to take away her sons as slaves to pay off her debts. This is in 2 Kings 4, verses 1 through 7. So the widow went to Elisha to ask for help. And he asked her what she had. She thought this probably was a strange question because obviously she had much of nothing. She couldn't pay the debts that she needed to be able to save her children. She says, "I don't have anything except this small jar of oil." Now, of course, Elisha told her to go and borrow as many jars as she could find and to start filling them with the oil from the one small jar that she had. So she obeyed him and filled all the jars that she could find, giving her enough oil to sell to pay off her debts, to keep her children, and pay what she owed, and probably have some more left over as well. She thought that she had something insignificant, but God was able to work a miracle with that oil. My last example is the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. Now, this story is recorded in all four Gospels, but John's the only one that really gives us some additional information as to where that the 5 loaves and 2 fish came from. There was a small boy that had provided those or had brought those with him. Now, the little boy probably had no idea what he had, that he had something that could be used to perform one of the most powerful miracles in the entire Bible by Jesus. You too have something that God can use. It's easy to look around and kind of compare ourselves to others and conclude that we're not good enough, or we don't have anything of value. We don't have any real talents that God can use. Is what we have enough? Even if we have many talents, even if we are one of the most powerful motivational speakers on the planet, if we have riches, is that enough? No, it's not. It's not enough, but that's the point. We can certainly disqualify or discredit ourselves because we think that we don't have enough. What we really have to do is we have to rely on God to use what we have and make it more. We should not disqualify ourselves because we don't think we have enough, whether that's physical things, if it's talents. He's going to accomplish what he needs to do with what we have. This applies to us certainly individually, but also as a church, as a whole. God can multiply what we're able to do, not just from a physical standpoint, or because we think we don't have the physical resources or the physical talents, but of course he can do whatever he needs to accomplish his work. But of course that doesn't mean that we just sit back and just wait for God to show up and do something for us or to do something with us. I'm reminded of the end of the parable of the talents in Matthew 25 and verse 29. In the New Living Translation, it says, "To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away." We do have a responsibility to prepare ourselves, to allow him to do something with us. We have to continuously improve ourselves, to be further converted, to strengthen our spiritual relationship with him so that he will use us to further his work. 1 Peter 4 and verse 10 reminds us that as each one has received a gift, minister it to one another as good stewards of the manifold grace of God. We're to share our gifts. We're to share our talents, no matter what they are. Everyone has something that can be used to be able to solve a problem. Just as God asked Moses, "What's in your hand?" He is asking you the same question. Now, it might not be an old battered stick, but it is something. You might not have olive oil to sell, but you do have something that will help others in a desperate situation. You might not need to give Jesus your lunch to feed a multitude, but there is something that you can offer him. What do you have? And what will you do with it?